Chapter 6. The Lover in His Fullness. The lover is the archetype of vivid, spontaneous, and channeled libido. Given form by the other mature masculine archetypes, the lover makes the superabundant energy of libido available to a man's psyche. Like the engorged phallus that is his symbol, the lover allows the life force to drive the psyche upward into the light of day. The lover luxuriates eternally in the fantastic domain of the collective unconscious, behind the portals of Toyland, where the playful child is at one with all things. Through the energies of the lover, the conscious mind encounters the personal and collective unconscious. The lover is the archetype of feeling. He feels the pain and poignancy of a man's personal life, and of all living things. But no matter what his suffering, the lover knows the fierce and terrible joy at the heart of all things. Through his feelings, the lover is the archetype of relatedness and hidden connections. He knows that every fragment of the universe contains an image of the whole. Because he knows this, he is the archetype that reconciles all opposites: sensuality and intellect, pleasure and reason, body and soul, life and death, eros and agape, the many and the one. To the extent that the king and the magician also reconcile opposites, they are drawing upon lover energy within their own dynamic structures. Because he sees, feels, tastes, hears, and touches the myriads of sensory forms and feeling-toned ideas, the lover can never be convinced by limited perspectives, partial truths, or experiences that are not comprehensive. From his experience of the many, he apprehends the one. Within the psyche, the lover inspires a man to give every element, complex, and subpersonality its due on his way toward blending them into a harmonious and unified self. The lover's drive is toward the unlimited, the unconditional, the uncalculating, the borderless. He moves us toward an oceanic consciousness. The lover is the archetype of desire for pleasures that always remain unsatisfied in time and space. The essence of human being is not, as Descartes argued, in our thoughts. Rather, our essence is in our desires. Desiring arises in lover energy, and nothing can destroy it. Not the reality principle, nor work, nor repression. For the lover will always reassert himself in dreams, fantasies, and unconscious behaviors. He will always affirm the pleasure principle against whatever odds, against whatever misery of body or soul. People are not satisfied when their conscious desires are met because they are unconscious of their real desires. The restlessness we see all around us is the restlessness of people who can smell the garden of delight, but who do not know where to look to find it. The lover as instinctual drive. As the archetype of Eros, the lover embodies in a man the hunger for sex, for sensual experience, for procreation, and for a comprehensive sense of well-being. As part of his instinctual drive, the lover binds the soul to the sensual world. and makes of the body an instrument of pleasure rather than work. The lover causes a man to experience the feelings of the divine child in all their primordial intensity. He connects a man to the full range of his own feelings and leaves him excruciatingly bound in bonds of empathy and compassion to all things. The lover wants to touch and be touched, to hear and be heard, to smell and be smelled, to taste and be tasted, to behold and to be beheld by all. An interesting episode in the Star Trek television series addresses this theme. In this episode, disincarnate aliens commandeer the bodies of a number of the Enterprise crew members. Once inside these sensual bodies, the aliens are overcome by a sudden uprush of desires and feelings with which they are unprepared to cope. As overpowering as these feelings are, the aliens enjoy their newfound incarnations and do not wish to return to their disembodied condition. When they are finally forced to disincarnate and return to the bodies to their rightful owners, the aliens do so with the utmost regret. The lover feels the incarnation of the spirit in the things of this world. He allows a man to experience God as an exotic and sensual being, present in the here and now. This awareness, which philosophers have labeled pantheism, characterizes the religious experience of many pre-modern peoples. Primitive people to this day see a material world alive with the spirits of gods, ancestors, demons, powerful shamans, and lost parts of their own psyches. The anthropologist Levi Bruhl has called this sense of belonging to the underlying and animating mana of all finite things: trees, birds, the waving grass, the ever-changing sky. Participation mystique. Psychotherapy, along with other modern sciences, regards such feelings as superstitious. We believe, however, that such feelings represent true intuitions, which the lover conveys to men who are open to the dreaming innocence of their inner child. According to Herbert Marcuse, the instinctual lover stands against culture and civilization. For Marcuse, since the instincts strive for a gratification which culture cannot grant, they are sublimated, and their gratification indefinitely delayed. Instinctually, however, the lover wants immediate satisfaction in pleasure, in play, in receptiveness, and in the absence of repression. The lover has no interest in the reality principle, which preaches delayed satisfaction, the restraint of pleasure, in the engagement in work, production, and security. No matter how great our efforts to bind and banish the lover, he remains absolutely committed to the pleasure principle. Often, men will live the first half of their lives in conformity with the reality principle, only to discover somewhere in their 30s, 40s, or 50s that the repressed lover has returned with a vengeance. They may begin acting out sexually, having affairs with their secretaries or coworkers. They may be seized by chaotic, raging, or giddy emotions, and begin to behave in ways that seem utterly foreign to them and to the people who know them. They may quit their jobs of many years and set sail for warmer climes. They may enter a psychotherapeutic process. If they do begin psychotherapy, they enter, in part, the sacred space of the lover. In this sacred space, the lost garden reappears as these men regress into childlike states of thinking and feeling. In such a process, Marcuse reminds us regression assumes a progressive function. Since the once repressed lover provides these startled and disoriented men with a vision of future wholeness. The tabooed images of freedom reassert themselves, and a man finds himself once more at his beginning, with his mind and heart filled with passions he thought he had long ago left behind. The instinctual lover drives us toward sensual and sexual union with feminine energies and beings. These include the inner feminine, who often makes her appearance in our erotic dreams. In these dreams, our masculine egos engage their lost feminine counterparts. The lover does not stop here, of course, but draws us on to meet and to mate with flesh and blood women in the outer world. The sexual hunger the lover initiates in us is one of the most basic hungers of our species. Unlike most of the other animals, human beings do not have seasons of sexual arousal. Barring inner or outer inhibiting factors, men and women are always ready to mate. The lover, through the sex drive, prods us toward an eternity of pleasure. Through the nirvana principle, the lover expresses the convergence of pleasure and of death. It is the ego that dies temporarily. But, for Marcuse, just as soon as Eros and Thanatos converge, they diverge. He sees Eros and Thanatos in the human psyche as manifesting the underlying universal fusion and fission process which drives life. In the nirvana principle, says Marcuse, the death instinct is destructiveness not for its own sake, but for the relief of tension. The flight toward death is a flight from pain and want. We believe it is also a flight toward fullness of being, toward Marcuse's sense of integral satisfaction of needs. On the border between the lover's drive toward archaic sensual and sexual satisfaction on the one hand, and the psycho-spiritual satisfaction on the other, the memory of the womb and the promise of the kingdom of heaven energize a man's psyche with these divergent and convergent aspects of libido. The lover as psycho-spiritual drive. Among the root hungers of the human psyche is the hunger for a sense of meaning. Spiritual experience, religious symbols, and rituals mediate this sense of meaning to the human animal. As some have theorized, humankind may be best described not as Homo sapiens, the, quote, wise man, but as Homo religiosus, the religious man. Without a sense that life is meaningful beyond the day-to-day struggle to survive and to propagate, most human beings, most of the time, cannot go on. They become depressed. They cannot see why they should keep pushing ahead in a world that wounds so, and so represses innate joy, and so delays the gratification of instinctual wishes. The lover provides the psyche with the satisfaction of its hunger for meaning via spiritualized eros and agape. Experiencing nirvana, the love of God, or the kingdom of heaven as the garden of delight, inspires us to love ourselves and everyone in particular with a truly transforming love. The lover's passion for the intangible and the tangible, for the immortal and the mortal, draws the soul upward. Although the objects of his spiritual yearning and his higher love are spirits, souls, and ideas, the lover provides a man's psyche with sensitivity, empathy, and a sense of connectedness to these intangibles. While the lover energy impels us to seek and find reunion with the divine, he does so by rendering our experience of the divine and of abstract ideas sensuous. The spiritualizing lover, so powerfully online in the mystics, allows us to feel the cosmic power of harmony and life through the things of this world, and imagine further the things of original creation. The insights that the spiritualizing lover imparts to a man move him to formulate metaphysical words, and to hammer these often clumsy words into relationships that will convey something of that world of unutterable delight which he has experienced. Drawing upon the idea-shaping power of the magician, upon the impulse toward disciplined action of the warrior, and upon the world-making skills of the king, the mystic formulates a romantic doctrine of salvation. His doctrine of salvation, of ultimate well-being, is one that heralds the apokatastasis panton, the restoration of all things to the life of the Creator. Within this restoration, the reconciliation of all opposites, and the resurrection of the flesh, fully incarnated by spirit, are both accomplished. This resurrection of love's body will always hold the animal and the angel, the material and the psychic, in creative and ultimately harmonious tension. Eros will be rescued by agape, and agape by eros, and amor will flourish as a result. The lover's drive toward incarnation. The doctrine of incarnation, hand in hand with the doctrine of resurrection, is an intuitional statement of the reality of amor. In amor, spirit and body love each other fully and passionately. By urging us toward incarnating the lover's garden in this world, the lover is aiming at resurrecting our primal sense of the unity of body and spirit, and our original polymorphous sense of pleasure. Drawing upon the structuring energies of the other mature masculine archetypes to help him define, affirm, and refine his own expansive boundaries, the lover moves to incarnate his ecstasy in finite and bounded forms. He moves, in the fullness of his being, to manifest himself in this world, on this side of the wall. Cultural achievement is one of his manifestations. A cultural production is always an incarnational act. Something intangible is made at least partially tangible. Something potential becomes actual. Something dreamed is pulled into reality. The lover's drive toward incarnation provides the ethical impulse to engender harmonious order within the individual psyche and within the institutions of society. The lover infuses his sense of connection into the culturally developed institutions of marriage, family, friendship, and society. Reconciling the opposites of dream and reality, he empowers the king to order a generative world fit for human beings to live in. The lover in the king, the warrior, and the magician is the impulse behind all forms of masculine generativity. He offers insight and inspiration to men in all walks of life who are striving to create new possibilities. He opens the minds of scientists, social theorists, economists, lawyers, judges, businessmen, construction workers, politicians, and revolutionaries to new opportunities. Every time a man moves to embody in his family, profession, nation, or globe greater truth or beauty, the lover is seeking to plant his garden in the here and now. Every time any one of us acts on a hunch or heeds the rumors of angels within, we are following the lead of the lover. If the lover, in creative union with the other mature masculine archetypes, inspires all forms of cultural achievement, he abides, as we have seen, in an especially close relationship to the artist, writer, poet, and musician. All of these creators seek, through a process of self-sacrifice and self-transcendence, to incarnate the infinite in finite form, color, and sound. The artist holds up to us the images of the garden and so urges us to incarnate the true and the beautiful in our own worlds. The lover, in his incarnational drive, helps us all to be romantic about our lives. He helps us to achieve realistic happiness, to dream possible dreams, and to make them come true. The lover's relationship to libido. All of the archetypes, including the lover, are structures of the deep unconscious. The self is the central archetype. Each archetype gives its unique form to the underlying libido which powers it. Libido, when poured into the form of the archetype in its fullness, and then through it into the psyche and into the created world, manifest what the Freudians call the life instinct. But when the archetype manifests in the psyche in fragmented form, it splits into a bipolar shadow. To the extent that psychological splitting can be seen as a necessary part of the libido's simultaneous movement toward divergence, thesis, antithesis, and toward complex convergence and unity, synthesis, the bipolar shadow forms of any archetype can be seen as opportunities for creative advance. As Jung saw, our neuroses are emissaries of a primordial and ontological self, striving, no matter what the cost, toward self-integration. While we believe that there are 4 distinct forms of libido, it can be argued that the lover is more central to the dynamics of libido than are the other archetypes. Freudians, in examining their archetypal configurations, might regard the king, the warrior, and the magician as sublimations of lover energy. If thinking and reflection, the magician, delayed gratification and work, the warrior, and the engendering of civilization and creative order, the king, are all deflections of primordial libido, and if the lover stands for the pleasure principle and for play, then indeed the lover dwells closer to the fires of archaic life force than do the other mature masculine archetypes. At the same time, the lover in his fullness, as expressed in the lives of mature men, draws upon the other three archetypes for his incarnational program. Therefore, the lover himself is sublimated to some extent. In fact, if such a thing as unconditioned libido exists at all, it must be mediated and structured before passing to the psyche. It must be sublimated, at least in part, in order for there to be a coherent psyche, and consequently a coherent created world at all. Creation, not just civilization, demands both structure and the regulation of primordial aims. Even at the level of inorganic matter, any unmediated encounter with pure being would mean the instantaneous annihilation of both consciousness and finite selves. The archetypes, when represented as gods, have often been depicted in sacred literature as possessing this annihilating power. Any system of ego structure that comes into the direct contact with the king, warrior, or magician gods, Zeus, Yahweh, the Gnostic Father in the abyss of silence, Vishnu, and others, experiences instant fragmentation. Since these archetypes primarily manifest mediating and organizing power, we believe the real source of their annihilating force lies in archetypal libido. If the lover is the closest of the archetypes to primordial libido, then it is the lover's superabundance of life force, which, within the king, the warrior, and the magician, which sweeps ego consciousness and the created world away. The fierce wrath of the warriors and the king's shadows, and the cold rage of the shadow magician, are expressions of the lover's repressed passion and frustrated libido. This view accords well with the Freudian notion that eros and thanatos arise from the same source in libido. It would also explain the close relationship between passion and rage in the psychological splitting present in all bipolar shadow disorders, at one pole of which the ego feels captivated by passivity and ennui, and at the other pole of which, the active pole, the ego feels possessed by feelings of aggressiveness. Contemporary men and the lover. What does a man who is appropriately accessing the lover look like? He is a man in touch with his archaic roots, with the world of childhood, with the realm of instinct, and with the promptings of his own body. He revels in his own sensuality, Simple things give him pleasure. Sunlight reflected in broken glass on the street, linguine in white sauce, a tango on the radio, the smell of his lover's skin, the feel of rough wood. He savors his feelings and does not repress them. Yet, he contains them and maintains some cognitive distance from them, not allowing them to possess him or to plunge him into chaos. But he does feel them. His emotional life is not a dull gray. He is not depressed. When it is time to grieve, he does. He does not defend against his heartbreak, pretending that everything is fine. He grieves and is comforted knowing that his grief will pass. He endures it and waits for release. When release comes, with a child's smile, a lover's touch, a raise at work, even with something as simple as the smell of fresh paint, he revels in it. This man has the abiding sense that the world of things is alive. He cherishes his inner child's feelings that spirits live in the trees, call out in the wind, look up at him from the streams, and brood on the mountaintops. He knows that witches ride the broomstick in the closet, and that sleigh bells tinkling in the breeze signal the presence of Father Christmas. The man appropriately accessing the lover is in intimate relationship with all of the structures in his inner world. He honors the child within and will not long submit to a work situation that does not encourage the child's play in some significant way. He accepts his shadow aspects without necessarily agreeing with their points of view or acting on their impulses. He loves them and compassionately views them as prodigal brothers, the lost, despised, and wounded aspects of his own true self. Within the man accessing the lover, Osiris and Set, Christ and Satan, and all other opposites meet, embrace, and reconcile. This man knows that life is messy, and that the good and evil urges he carries within him cannot be scrupulously divided. He maintains a permeable repression barrier between his conscious identity and the contents of his polymorphously perverse unconscious. As part of this program, he is in intimate relationship with his anima. He knows and loves her in all of her many aspects. He meets her in sexual ecstasy in his dreams, and with paper and pen, he conducts regular dialogues with her. He knows that she will always be with him, and he pledges his eternal loyalty to her. The man appropriately accessing the lover embodies what Browning calls masculine motherliness. He becomes what Robert Bly calls a male mother. Through his relationships with his child, his shadow, and his anima, this man offers his loving fidelity freely and unconditionally to the self at the center of his psyche. He pledges his fealty to the self and offers his life in service to its generative purposes. This is a man who has a developed spirituality and who embraces a vision of unity rather than one of hatred, self-righteousness, and division. While he celebrates the particular cultural, ethnic, and religious heritage into which he was born, he enjoys the diversity of human experience. He remains faithful to the child's primordial vision that beneath diversity is an underlying unity. Spiritually, this man is a universalist and is the true guardian of his own religion's most profound and humanizing beliefs and values. The man appropriately accessing the inner lover lives, as far as it is realistic for him to do so, out of his ideals, his noblest thoughts and feelings, and his dreams, for his own life and for the life of his family, his profession, his community, his nation, and his planet. Because he can love and care for himself deeply and authentically, he can also reach out to others with care, concern, empathy, and love. To the extent that this man has come to see all of the destructive forces human beings are up against in this life, and to the extent that he owns his own inner darkness, his love for others is real. He does not exempt himself from the human situation or distance himself from his fellow creatures in a self-righteous fantasy that he is good and they are evil. Since he has already accepted, forgiven, and valued his own shadow, he can accept, forgive, and value the struggles others face in their own attempts to move beyond neurosis to wholeness. Because he is so in touch with his inner world, the man accessing the lover is able to withdraw a great many of his projections from others. He does not need to blame others in order to avoid blaming himself for his own dysfunctional psychic elements. Nor does he need to project his own strength, initiative, and potency onto others in order to avoid taking responsibility for these qualities in himself. Instead, he lovingly recalls all of who he is, in his strengths and in his weaknesses. He does not blame himself or cooperate in the self-shaming he may have been taught as a child. He has compassion for his weaknesses and genuine appreciation for his strengths. He knows that what appears to be a weakness is often a hidden strength, and what appears to be a strength may disguise a hidden weakness. The others he values and loves include his wife or lover, his parents, his children, his siblings, his friends, and his associates. In the end, he loves all human beings. But his concern and caring goes beyond the human race. He knows that he is bound to his brothers and sisters in the natural world, the waters, the land, the sky above, and the other animals and plants with whom he shares this planet. He is a man engaged in some form of community service. He contributes to some cause that furthers the well-being of humans, animals, or the larger environment, and he takes actions that demonstrate his concern for the ecosystem. This man reaches out, emotionally and physically, to women. His feelings of amour are not discouraged by the destructive dynamics that intrude into all relationships between men and women. Rather, he works to minimize the destructiveness, or he takes action to extricate himself from a dead-end relationship. The amorous man will not accept a relationship that is nothing more than an uneasy truce. The man appropriately accessing the lover will also seek to bond with other men. He will learn to love, forgive, admire, and appreciate his own father. And he will compassionately value all of his male elders. He will come to understand why they have been absent emotionally or physically, how they themselves have been wounded, and why they might have been attacked, and why they might have attacked him. As an older man, he will minimize his feelings of fear and envy of younger men. He will embrace his sons, and he will realize how desperate young men are for his approval, his caring, and his blessing. He will become a nurturing ritual elder for them. The man who is adequately accessing the archetypal lover will extend his healing hand and embrace to others. He will take it upon himself to heal the sick and cast out demons, wherever and whenever he can. He will move to heal the suspicions and the fears that divide man from man woman, nation from nation, and humankind from the ecosystem. He will work through erotic, agapetic, and amorous feelings to depotentiate the demons of hatred and rage that gather in the gloom of any space not illumined by love. In his private life, this man will seek to restore the lost paradise of the garden. As the gardener of his own small plot of ground, he will work through love to nurture and to grow rather than to cut off and destroy. As Sam Keen and Eric Erickson have each pointed out, part of the business of living a life of generativity involves the rearing of children. The man appropriately accessing the lover is likely to be a biological father. While the lover's sexual enjoyment of eternal paradise cannot be seen simply as an exercise in procreation, it remains true that the ultimate purpose of the erotic impulse is to ensure the survival of the species. More than survival is aimed at here. Part of the joy of loving is discovered by the generative man in teaching, in keeping safe, and in imparting a sense of adventure to his developing sons and daughters. He is motivated by the sheer joy of giving in order to enhance his children's prospects for greater self-fulfillment. While not all men who are accessing the lover adequately become biological fathers, all men who love involve themselves in some significant way with children. They may donate some of their time to youth programs in their communities, or become involved in professional counseling work with children, or work to stamp out drug use among teenagers in their neighborhoods. In these, and in many other ways, men of all ages involve themselves in intergenerational love and caring. They are men who are cultural innovators. Such a man, in whatever walk of life he finds himself, has a natural tendency to be open and receptive to new images, new ideas, and new methods. He is always an artist in a broad sense of the word. He is open to inspiration from the personal and collective unconscious. He will often receive intuitive solutions to problems in the middle of the night or on the commute to work. He does not dismiss his intuitions. Instead, he trusts that hunches and instincts issue from a deep and alert inner psychic space. The man appropriately accessing the lover supports structure in the family, the corporation, the nation, the church, and the political party. But he demands that the structures he supports represent creative ordering, with the emphasis on creative. Should he come to realize that these structures are more oppressive than liberating, this man may very well become a rebel, a whistleblower, even a revolutionary. The lover ensures that the man who draws on his energies lives passionately. Such a man radiates a centered vitality and intensity. He is both content and free. His life pulsates with the strength of the phallus. He provides a fertile psychic medium for bringing others to life. In touch with the mysteries of life and death, he moves colorfully among all those with whom he comes into contact. He is awake in a world of sleepwalkers. If he is free, it is because he is not addicted. While he enjoys the pleasures of the senses, he does not become undone by them. He is not chemically addicted to drugs, alcohol, tobacco, or any other substance. Nor is he addicted to his work or his relationships. He knows that he can live without any of these. He knows this because he has a spiritual perspective. He avoids idolatry, the investing of finite objects, events, institutions, or people with infinite meaning and potency. He chooses his own gods, but always keeps in mind that any god's particular path is only another path to the garden. He knows that while the lover engages him in the process of incarnation, finally, the archetype also points beyond the finite, temporal world to the infinite and the eternal. If the man appropriately accessing the lover bears a striking resemblance to the man appropriately accessing the king, the warrior, or the magician, it is because each archetype of mature masculinity interpenetrates the others. Each of the four archetypes requires the others in order to manifest its own full maturity. The man appropriately accessing one of the mature masculine archetypes is, in large part, accessing them all. A truly generative man is the result.